Are you looking to learn more about investing in the central Indiana real estate market? You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Indy Real Estate Investing Podcast with T&H Realty, where we discuss all things related to investing in the central Indiana real estate market. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Indy Real Estate Investing Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Tallman with T&H Realty. We are a residential property management company that services the central Indiana market. With me once again today is our lead real estate agent, Devon Hicks. Welcome back, Devon.
Thank you. Happy to be here again.
Yeah, we recorded a podcast a while back, Devon, if you remember. It wasn't long ago. And we did a pretty thorough rundown of Anderson, Indiana, because we wanted to start this series of different areas around central Indiana where people may consider investing. And we started with Anderson because I think you'll agree we see opportunity there. We see value there. You're able to have some success there. So we thought it made sense to start there. But at the end of the day, people love to talk about Indianapolis. And from an investor's perspective, when people think about investing in Indianapolis, I'm guessing, Devon, is the first place people talk about.
Yep, most definitely. Pretty much every call that comes in or anyone that reaches out at Indianapolis is kind of the starting point. And then, we kind of get to talking about how big kind of the central Indiana market is. And then we kind of start discussing some of the more outlying areas, but Indianapolis is usually the conversation starter for sure.
Right. Because people come here searching for cash flow, cap rates, whatever, they can find, because there's a lot of, let's face it, there's a lot of national press about Indianapolis is still a good place to invest. And so it makes sense. So we thought we'd spend some time today really drilling in to the townships first in central Indiana or Indianapolis, and then also drilling into some of those neighborhoods within those townships. And before we started, just a couple of things. One, Devon, you've spent a lot of time developing content around what we're going to talk about, right? So we have blogs and content pages within our website that go into all these different areas in a lot of detail. We'll put links to those in our show notes. So we encourage you to bookmark that if you want to come back to it. And secondly, today is September 11th, 2023. Our market has been going up and down and all over the place in the last several months. So the numbers that we're going to give you today will likely change quickly. So if you happen to be listening to this podcast, in 2026, 2027, these numbers aren't going to be relevant anymore. But the reality is the township names are probably going to be the same. Their locations will be the same. So we thought we'd spend a little time getting into some details here surrounding central Indiana. So one of the new things we're doing today is this. We're going to try to put this out on YouTube. We think it makes sense to have this as more of a visual podcast. We've never done this, Devon. So I want to start sharing my screen now so people can get an idea of what we talk about the different townships in central Indiana. So a good way to think about Indianapolis is it's divided up through 9 townships, and think of it like a tic-tac-toe board. Right? These aren't perfect squares. Some of them, if you look at like Perry Township, isn't even really a square, but it should give people a good idea of kind of what Indianapolis looks like from a township standpoint. So I thought we could start like any tic-tac-toe player, Devon, with Center Township. It's named appropriately. It's right in the center of our city. And we're going to start there. And I want to throw out some numbers to you, Devon. And then I want to have you get into some more details surrounding all of these townships. So township is our most populated township. If you think about it this way, if you took Center Township's population, which happens to be 152,629, this was as of a 2021 census. But if you took that population and made it its own city, it would be the 3rd largest city in Indiana. So there are a lot of people, high density township, like all city centers are throughout the country. But the interesting thing about Center Township, it's extremely diverse. So we get some of our highest price per square foot sales in Center Township. We probably get some of our lowest price per square foot sales in Center Township. So just some quick numbers, Devon. I'll let you take over and and give us some more information about Center Township. But the median household income, again, this is as of 2021, was the lowest in Indianapolis, and that is $45,208. There are 85,823 housing units. That is obviously the highest in Indianapolis. The owner occupied percentage, which is something we'll be talking about with all of our townships, I think is pretty interesting. It's only 46%. So only 46% of those housing units are owner occupied, meaning the rest are rental properties. And then the median sales price for single family homes, this is year to date. This is one number we did get updated. Rosie spent a lot of time getting these numbers to me over the last few days. That is 179,900, well below the average. So Devon, talk about Center Township. We manage more homes in Center Township than any township that we have, but give people some details from your perspective, investing, that sort of thing on Center Township.
Sure. Yeah. Kind of like you alluded to, it is very diverse. So there's some really, really nice neighborhoods. There's what I would consider up and coming neighborhoods. And then there's some neighborhoods that I probably wouldn't get out of my car. So it kind of hits the whole spectrum there. I would say since I've been in this role, I have not done a ton of business there as far as helping investors buy there for whatever that reason is. I'm not sure. I think since I've been in this role heavily, it's been more since COVID. So I think people kind of started looking outside of the city and wanting to get in some of the nicer, better areas with the better school districts. So I honestly haven't done a ton on the buy side there. There are a couple of the neighborhoods there that are really kind of taking off, that have seen a lot of improvements, and I think are kind of hot topics in the investor forums and everything right now is kind of the Garfield Park, Bean Creek neighborhoods. Historically, they were pretty run down, just kind of junky neighborhoods. They do have really close proximity to the interstate on some of the streets. So kind of just has had more of a rundown industrial feel, but we helped an investor buy one over there earlier this year. And, it was a 1,300 square foot house. He got it for 155,000 and it was already rented for 1,300. So
Nice.
When you think of a neighborhood that up until fairly recently has been kind of on the rundown side, 1,300 is a pretty solid rent to get for a property. And, it was already leased, didn't have to do any work to it. So, definitely opportunities there for sure. And I do think there's some other neighborhoods like Christian Park, I think is seeing a lot of gentrification, and some of those streets over there that probably 5-6 years ago would not have recommended. Now there's some pockets over there that I drive through and go look at houses for potential buys and things like that. So I definitely think there's some neighborhoods over there that are really seeing some improvement and could have good opportunity and long-term value for sure. But you do still have to be careful because it is spotty and kind of hit or miss still.
Right. Yeah, as you mentioned, a lot of investors like the newer housing stock, and that isn't necessarily, there's new construction going on in Center Township. I live in Center Township. We walk through, downtown all the time, and there's construction projects going on all the time. They're not big scale projects like you might see going on in like Westfield, Indiana. Now they're not building 200 home neighborhoods in Center Township, but they are filling in like vacant lots and things like that slowly, small little, maybe 12, 15 unit type townhome structures. But you're right. It's an older, generally speaking, the housing stock is older. Investors do like that suburban stuff. And so we don't see a lot of activity from an investor standpoint. We manage some of our highest price rentals. We do manage are in Center Township. And like I said, we do manage a high concentration of properties, but it's not for everybody, right? It's for people that are maybe looking for value, long-term appreciation, things like that. So. All right, let's move up. Let's start top left then. That's into Pike Township. Pike Township has a population of 82,446 people. Median household income is just over $60,000. There's about 36,639 housing units. 56% of those are owner occupied. And the median sales price, this is year to date in Pike Township, is $240,600. So Devon, we have a decent amount of homes in Pike Township. Give us some details on your thoughts.
Yeah, I like Pike Township a lot. I pulled the average rent, I just kind of pulled from the last 12 months is a little over $1,600 a month. So you get a pretty solid average rent over there for kind of, I'd say bang for your buck for what, you're paying for properties over there. There are a lot more of more of the Vinyl Village 90s, 80s. You kind of have a little bit more opportunity to get out of the really old houses and kind of try to mitigate some of those more expensive maintenance issues. So yeah, I like Pike Township a lot. It's a very popular rental area. Average days on market the last year was under 30, just under 30. So there's a lot of demand there. I think it's a pretty decent school district as well, as far as Indianapolis goes. So yeah, and I think within the last year, I believe it was, can't remember exactly, but one of the houses we helped a client buy, really, really nice kind of, 90s Vinyl Village house, 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,200 square feet. They bought it for 190, didn't have to put a cent into it. Basically, it was super updated, really nice. And we leased it for $1,400 in 2 days. So
Yeah. Yeah, Pike Township does have a lot of demand from a rental market perspective. There's no doubt about it. We like managing up there because it is generally pretty easy to rent. So let's move along then. Next to Pike Township, just above Center Township, is Washington Township. Washington Township is the home of T&H Realty. That's where our offices are. Extremely, extremely popular township to live in. There's 137,996 people that live in Washington Township. Again, I think if you pulled Washington Township out, it would be probably the 4th largest city in Indiana. It's a very popular place to live. Median household income is $77,542. There's 65,866 housing units. 61% of those are owner occupied. And it has the median, I guess, at least through this year to date, through August again, the highest median sales price, which is $315,000. We manage a lot of properties in Washington Township, Devon. It's home to Broad Ripple. It's home to Meridian Kessler. There's just a lot of great things about Washington Township. Kind of give us your perspective from an investor standpoint.
Yeah. Well, fun fact, I live in Washington Township. So
Yeah.
we live more in kind of a suburban neighborhood, not anywhere near Broad Ripple or anything like that. But yeah, again, Washington Township is not one that I've worked a ton in on the buy side. And I just think the better areas are expensive to get in. Broad Ripple is already so established, so desirable. It's hard to buy a rental property that's going to make sense, in that neighborhood. I will say a little bit more luck maybe on the multifamily side. We, not directly in Broad Ripple, but in some kind of the surrounding areas, we've had some luck with more on the multifamily side, I would say. So definitely a lot of opportunity there. But again, some pretty variable neighborhoods, like you have Broad Ripple, which is kind of your trendy bar, restaurant, nightlife, shops kind of area. And then my neighborhood is a very quiet, big trees on the cul-de-sac, kind of typical suburban neighborhood. So you kind of have the whole spectrum there as well. But there are a couple neighborhoods that I like because, it's very block by block still as well. So there is still some opportunity, I think, to buy on some blocks and streets that are definitely turning and seeing some good improvement. And we did that for a client this year, bought a property that's kind of over by the Indiana State Fairgrounds, actually,
Right.
which, definitely still spotty, some kind of sketchiness still going on in some of those streets. But yeah, this particular street, it was kind of like 70-30, 70% of the houses had been flipped or rehabbed. And so you could definitely tell it was heading in the right direction. So they got a killer deal on it. We got it for 135, little 3-bed, 1-bath, rented it for 1,100. They put a little bit of work into it, but it's probably, with the little bit of work they put into it, it was probably already worth 160, 170. So they already had quite a bit of equity. And I think those values are going to continue to trend up as those blocks kind of continue to trend up to keep up with some of the better areas that are already established in Washington Township.
Yeah. It's a great township. You're right. I mean, Washington Township starts, generally speaking, at 38th Street for people that, know our city a little bit. and it goes up to 96th Street. And as you go, so there's still opportunities in those southern streets. You mentioned the state fairgrounds. My wife and I have been going the last several years, and we have always come in off Fall Creek, right? So, but we got a tip from Cynthia in our office here saying, "Hey, go 46th Street. It's easier." So we did that this year, and so I hadn't been in those areas, those southern Washington Township streets, in quite a while. And it is interesting to see, like, there's so much, not only refurbishment, but like new construction. Like I mentioned, it's kind of happening in like, in Center Township, where they're tearing a house down, which they can do. Washington Township is not a protected area, although I think Metairie and Kessler may have some covenants and things like that. But generally speaking, you can tear a house down in Washington Township and build new. And we're seeing that, particularly around the state fairgrounds areas. There's some really nice homes. That's, again, not an area you'd want to be several years ago, but block by block, those things are coming back, and it's interesting to see. So, all right, next to Washington Township, top right of our city is Lawrence Township. Lawrence has a population of 121,753, median household income of 65,706. There's 54,696 housing units. 63% of those are owner occupied, and the median sale price through August of this year in Lawrence Township was $260,500. Lawrence Township, Devon, I lived there for a long time. Kids went through school there. Give us your perspective on Lawrence Township.
Yeah, so Lawrence Township is another one that's kind of interesting. It's kind of has a very clear divide of areas that you would want to be in and areas that you might not want to be in. So it's kind of interesting. There's kind of a, I won't specifically mention street names so I don't get in trouble for steering here, but yeah, if you drive north to south up and down Lawrence Township, you will definitely see a difference. So you do have some parts of Lawrence Township that are very high crime, a lot of violent crime, a lot of drug crime, unfortunately, a lot of poverty. So you do have that section of Lawrence Township. However, once you do start getting into a more northern part of Lawrence Township, you have some absolutely beautiful, amazing areas, some great neighborhoods. I feel like we manage quite a bit in Lawrence Township.
We do.
It's also one of those areas that is a very, very popular rental area, pretty well rated, and I think award-winning school district for some things. So, but yeah, and you have Castleton over there, which is a very popular kind of shopping destination. One of our malls is over there. You have Geist, which is an absolutely beautiful reservoir that we have. You can rent boats, and you have beautiful multi-million-dollar mansions up there on the lake. And there's another lake called Indian Lake. So there's Fort Harrison State Park is there. So there's a lot of really neat things in Lawrence Township that make it desirable. And yeah, and I know we tend to have really good luck when we put anything on the market to lease there as well. The most recent property that I could find that we helped a client buy, it was up more in the northern part of Lawrence Township, kind of a Vinyl Village house. Again, we manage, I feel like, probably 5 to 7 houses in this one neighborhood. So it's kind of a popular rental neighborhood, but the client purchased it for $195,000. It was a 2.5, 1,400 square foot, kind of 2-level house. And we leased it for $1,400 pretty quickly. So the average rent there right now is hovering around $1,500. So pretty solid numbers there too.
Yeah. I mean, like you mentioned, Lawrence is a very diverse township, like most of our townships are. It has that southern border on 38th Street, which borders Warren Township, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But yeah, I mean, but as you go further north, as you mentioned, Geist Reservoir has built up, and again, some very high dollar properties sell on Geist. So, but you're right. We've had, like Pike and like a lot of other townships, we've had a lot of good luck over the years getting stuff rented in Lawrence Township. So, okay, let's jump down a rung. Let's go to the kind of the middle townships here, starting on the left, and that is Wayne Township, home of the Indianapolis 500 Motor Speedway. Population in Wayne Township is 147,393. Median household income pretty low, 51,841. There's 63,179 housing units. 52% of those are owner occupied. And the median house sale price for homes through August of this year was 181,500. So Devon, your impressions of Wayne Township?
Yeah, Wayne Township is definitely interesting. There is a large chunk of Wayne Township that is still very kind of industrial, hasn't really been built up yet. So kind of some odd areas over there still for sure. The Indianapolis 500 takes place over there, which is pretty cool. The Speedway is over there, so that's obviously a massive attraction. A lot of that area is kind of built around race day, honestly. Yeah. I will say one interesting thing that got announced, I think it was 2 springs ago now, but there's an Elanco headquarters that broke ground. It's going to be getting built over there. So the trajectory of that is thinking that area is going to explode once that kind of really gets going. It's going to connect to downtown. So there is potential that part of Indy is just going to home values, and population is going to really see a big change with that and all the jobs that it's going to bring and things like that. But yeah, I feel like we do quite a bit in Wayne Township as well. There's some pretty affordable real estate over there, I would say, and the rent to price ratios are probably one of the better, I would say, if I had to say it off the top of my head. I know the average rent right now is hovering around a little over 1,300. So, but yeah, you have some neighborhoods like Chapel Glen, Westwood that are actually really nice, kind of established neighborhoods, kind of have the 80s style houses. You do have some definitely kind of more rougher neighborhoods around there still too, like I mentioned, kind of just feel like they haven't been built up and kind of just sandwiched with some weird industrial things. The airport is obviously right over there as well. So I know a lot of people, that's probably a big job contributor to that area. But yeah, an example of our property that we helped buy over there was a pretty small 3-bed, 1.5 bath. It's a little under 1,000 square feet. So it's a pretty small little house, really cute, updated. It was older. I think it was a 1930s build, but they got it for $123,000 and we leased it for $1,150. So that's a pretty low capital investment there. So. Right.
Yeah, I think you're right about Wayne Township. The Speedway is an amazing part of our city. I mean, it's one of the main reasons people know about Indianapolis is the Indianapolis 500. But at the same time, it's how many people want to live right around the Speedway. It's an unbelievably congested area to go multiple times a year. But to their credit, they have done an incredible job of building up some infrastructure over there through very cool restaurants. I know club, places to shop, things like that. And I heard a lot of that investment is coming from actually some race car drivers. Like they're investing in Speedway, Indiana to bring those people into it. So it's a fun place to be on race week. It's not necessarily a fun place to live, I don't think, on race week, because there's just so much traffic and congestion. There's over 300,000 people, I think, that pour into that little area, during race week. And that can be a little off-putting, I think, if you have to deal with that and live there. But all right, let's jump across Center Township. Next township, this is in the middle right. That is Warren Township. Warren Township has a population of a little over 105,000. Median household income is 54,248. There's just over 43,000 housing units in Warren Township. Owner occupied percentage surprised me is 59%. And the median sale price through August of this year in Warren Township is $200,000. So, Devon, we do a ton of Warren. Your impressions of Warren Township?
Yeah. So, when I'm talking with investors and we get talking about Warren Township, it's definitely not one of my favorite. It's not going to be at the top of my list to recommend. It's, I think, a very firm C-class area, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's a definite investment strategy. However, I will say, just from my experience, what I've seen, things will rent. There's very high rental demand. So you can probably get your 1% rule potentially or close to it. So you can probably get, a good cash flow there. However, what I see a lot from just even our experience leasing is tenants over there are very hard on the properties a lot of times. So we see a lot of turnover, a lot of expensive turnovers. So at the end of the day, it seems like your cash flow just kind of gets wiped out. So even if you think you're getting a good deal, I would say it's not one of the better areas for long-term investing. And in my opinion, just from what I've seen, it does fit that C-class narrative, I would say. But again, there are some nicer neighborhoods over there. Heather Hills is one we manage a few properties in that has a very different feel than a lot of Warren Township, I would say. It definitely has a nicer, more established feel than some of the other neighborhoods. So there definitely are areas that have some nicer houses. And I know Community Heights is also a neighborhood in Warren Township that I think has some long-term potential. It's kind of inching closer to downtown a little bit, so it has more of that urban feel, but that's an area, there's a big hospital over there, so I think there could be a lot of opportunity there if it continues to keep improving. That I think I have been more kind of recommending that neighborhood specifically for that reason, kind of the long-term potential of values improving. And I think there could be opportunity for, kind of midterm traveling nurse housing, things like that, due to that big hospital being over there. So that is one neighborhood that I like. And then one of the properties that we helped over there is actually, it's not in Irvington, which is a very kind of trendy, desirable neighborhood, but right outside Irvington. So, pretty solid there because you kind of get the proximity to that area. But it was just a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and they paid $135 for it. They put a little money into it, and at least for $1,200. So for a 2-bedroom to rent for $1,200 is pretty good, I think.
Yeah. We didn't talk about this beforehand, but does it surprise you that Warren Township has 59%, nearly 60% of owner occupied? It's higher than, several townships that we've already spoken about, higher than Wayne. It's going to be higher than some we're going to talk about, but I guess there's just, some, like you mentioned, there's a big hospital over there. You mentioned some neighborhoods that maybe just have a high concentration of people who lived there for a long time, but does that surprise you? Almost 60% of the homes over there are owner occupied.
It does. I will say yes, but I think I have a little bit biased perspective since I'm really only dealing with the rental side of things. But yeah, just the sheer amount of properties that we manage over there, that definitely, that number is surprising.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned Irvington. Irvington's a great place to live. It has a really good reputation. And so, yeah. Okay. Let's jump bottom rung, let's say, in Indianapolis townships. Bottom left is Decatur Township. It is our smallest township of only 36,432 people that live there. Median household income of just over 63,000. Just 13,754 housing units, 64% of which are owner occupied, and with a median sales price through August of this year of $240,000. Devon, your impressions of Decatur Township?
Yeah, I would say I've probably dealt the least with this township. If I had to really dig to find a property that we helped purchase here. So yeah, I'd say I'm the least familiar with this township just because I've dealt with the least amount of properties there. Honestly, I feel like it has a very similar feel to Wayne Township, in my opinion, as far as the types of properties. So it kind of just feels kind of almost like a continuation of Wayne Township to me, with the difference that I think Wayne Township is considered a little bit better of a school district from what I hear. But yeah, so I would say I haven't done a ton there. I think Canby is probably the most known kind of little area of Decatur Township, and probably what we manage the most in, if I had to guess. But yeah, average rent is really good there too. It's $1,543, so it's a pretty solid average rent for the last year. But the only property that I could find within about the last year and a half that we helped a client buy was a little 3-2 ranch, 1,100 square feet, minimal work needed, but we leased it for $1,300. So, definitely not horrible, but yeah, that's definitely an area that I would say we don't do as much in compared to a lot of the other townships.
Yeah, it's just smaller. There's a lot fewer houses, but there is a lot of development going on in there in Decatur Township. And I'm just curious. I think that township is probably set to grow and grow more, as you know, because there's more opportunities to build homes in Decatur Township than other townships in Indianapolis. So, okay, moving on, just across from Decatur Townships up to the east is Perry Township. Perry, 121,000 people, median household income of just over 55,000. There's 54,463 housing units, 56% of which are occupied, and the median sales price through August of this year in Perry Township was $235,000. So, Devon, your impressions of Perry Township?
Yeah, I like Perry Township a lot. It's pretty much across the board a really nice area. There's maybe a couple little pockets that aren't perfect, but generally speaking, it's a pretty nice area. It's has a very more rural feel, in my opinion. It's a lot of the properties are more spaced out, so you kind of get that feel a little bit more. University of Indianapolis is technically not in Perry Township, but it might as well be. It's right there. So that's, a big thing there as well. It's a smaller private university here. My husband went there, so we lived right there when I first moved to Indianapolis and loved it. So it's a really solid area. It is pricier for sure. People are willing to pay, especially owner occupants are willing to pay to live there, because Perry Township is a pretty good school district. So it's tougher on the investment side, I would say, but you have Southport down there, which is a really nice neighborhood. Buffalo Creek, we manage quite a few in Buffalo Creek, I would say, but yeah, overall, I like Perry Township. I think from what I've seen, it takes a little bit longer to rent things there. Days on market are a little bit higher. I'm not sure what that reasoning may be, but I do find things don't rent quite as quickly there as compared to some of the other townships from our experience. But yeah, the best, I think, example I could find was actually a duplex that we helped some clients buy there. Really nice brick, kind of 70s ranch duplex on a nice lot in a really nice kind of, like I said, almost a little bit more rural feeling neighborhood. But yeah, it's 2-1 each side, and they paid $220 for it for a duplex. And we leased, I think one side was already rented at $995, and then we leased the other side for $1,050. So that was a pretty good buy to get a duplex for less than what the a median single family goes for. So
right. All right. And then to wrap it up, bottom right corner is Franklin Township. Franklin's smallish too. It's a second lowest population of 65,788. Median household income, though, is the highest of 87,255. There's only 22,275 housing units, 77% of which are owner occupied. That is clearly the highest. And that's the second highest sales price. We have a medium sales price of single family homes through August of this year in Franklin Township of $299,900. That is right at the average for central Indiana. Franklin Township is considered a very popular township. Your impressions of Franklin?
Yeah, Franklin Township is great. I would say it would probably be my number one vote out of all of them. If you're looking for a stable investment, I'd say, and everyone kind of has differing opinions, but I think on paper and just from, what locals think, I'd say it is probably the best school district out of all of them. So that's a huge plus. Anywhere that has a good school district is usually a pretty good place to invest. People are going to want to live there, and they do. So it is a little bit tougher to buy there, I will say, just because you do compete against owner occupants wanting their kids in that school district. So can be a tougher market to penetrate, but I absolutely think it's worth it. Arlington Acres is a neighborhood there that we manage a lot, probably double-digit properties in at this point. So I know one we helped a client purchase in there last year, a tiny little 3-bed, 1-bath, 900 square feet. He got it for $169, which was a great value. I still honestly can't believe we got it for that. Really didn't need any work, and at least for $1,275 in a few days. So, that was a really solid buy, and, that's a property that he's going to see appreciation in as well. So yeah, there's also some kind of outlying areas of Franklin Township. Wanamaker is kind of a very farm town feeling area. So there's kind of some interesting, very undeveloped areas of Franklin Township as well, which is kind of cool. So we actually have a listing out there right now, and there's a cornfield that surrounds it and not much else. So you still kind of have that feel down there too. So for people that want to build, or there's definitely a lot of development opportunity as well, I think, in Franklin Township. So I like that one. I think it's a good one, really solid area. So yeah it is. I mean, most of these every township is center, as you get to the edges of them, the outer edges of them, you get in some rural areas. Indiana has a lot of farmland. And while we don't see corn growing in Center Township, we probably see a little growing in most of the other townships, at least on their edges. And that's why, again, Indianapolis is, considered to be such a good place to invest, because if you're looking to invest in Indiana, Indianapolis is, from a population standpoint, far and away your best bet. So thanks, Devon. I appreciate you jumping on here. I really appreciate the time and your expertise and getting to know a little bit more about Indianapolis. Absolutely. This was fun. It's a good exercise for me to go through, so I can give the best information to pass along to our investors as well.
All right. So we hope everyone's picked up some information that will help them in their investing. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another podcast. In the meantime, we encourage you to share this podcast with your investing friends, leave us a review, and please don't hesitate to reach out to us with any questions. Until next time, thanks so much for listening, and please stay invested in your investment.